Portlock was cursed and Bigfoot's place and nobody goes there. Overnight, everybody.
The horrors of Portlock, Alaska are more than eerie whispers in the wind. They're a chilling legacy of terror that emptied a thriving settlement. Imagine an entire village driven away by fear after brutal attacks and vanishing neighbors. This wasn't just once or twice. Portlock saw 4 waves of settlers come and go, each leaving in haste. Let us delve deeper into this haunting tale, a story that still echoes with fear and mystery to this day. When fear drove out the settlers. The story kicks off way back in 1785 when a British captain named Nathaniel Portlock showed up. His crew discovered what seemed like a perfect place to settle. But there was a twist. They found an abandoned native village. Weird, right? Why would anyone leave such a resource-rich spot? It didn't take long for things to go downhill. As the crew tried to set up shop, they got sick, and it wasn't just the usual sniffles. Fear spread faster than the sickness, and eventually the crew begged the captain to get them out of there. Captain Portlock finally gave in and they took off. Little did they know, what they left behind would become a mystery that haunts the coastline to this day. Here's the kicker. The Brits weren't the first ones to deal with this eerie vibe. 6 years before that, Spanish explorers rolled into the same area. Guess what? They dealt with the same kind of spooky stuff. Getting sick and hearing haunting cries coming from deep in the woods. The fear became too much, and they left without bothering to stick around. Whatever was lurking in those woods didn't seem friendly. Fast forward to the mid-1800s and another group gave it a shot. The Sugpiaq people, a nomadic native community, thought they'd found their new home. For a while, it looked like they hit the jackpot. Food was plentiful and life seemed good until it wasn't. That's when the real nightmare started. They began getting attacked by what they called cannibal giants. In their language, these creatures were called the Nantinak, half-man, half-beast monsters that came down from the mountains. When food ran low, the giants turned their attention to the people. Things got so bad that the Sugpiaq packed up and left, leaving behind some truly terrifying stories. Now you might be thinking, what's up with these so-called giants? Some folks believe they might have been a species of giant primates or a distant relative of Bigfoot. Others think it's just folklore blown out of proportion by fear and isolation. But there's no denying that something had these people spooked enough to abandon a prime location. In 1921, another group showed up determined to make it work. This time it was the Alutiiq people. They brought modern industry, set up a cannery, built a school, and even opened a post office. For almost a decade, things seemed to be going smoothly. They were cautious, though. Strict rules were in place to keep everyone safe. No wandering into the woods after dark, armed guards patrolling the area. They weren't taking any chances. But as time went on, people got comfortable, and the rules started to loosen up. That's when things took a dark turn again. It all started with the death of a logger named Andrew Camelnock. He went deeper into the forest than anyone had before. When he didn't return, a search party went looking for him. What they found was horrifying. His body was discovered mangled, and his sled was thrown far from where he lay. Even his dogs weren't spared. The sheer strength it would have taken to do that left everyone stunned. People whispered about the Nantinak being responsible, and fear gripped the town once more. Things only got worse from there. Hunters and loggers started disappearing, and when they were found, their bodies were often mutilated. While some people chalked it up to bear attacks, many weren't buying it. The way these bodies were found didn't match typical bear behavior. The Alutiiq reinstated their strict rules, hoping it would keep everyone safe, but the disappearances continued. By 1950, the fear reached a boiling point. Over 30 people had gone missing, and the town couldn't take it anymore. Almost overnight, everyone packed up and left. The only person who stuck around for a little longer was the post office worker who had to finish up some duties. He later reported hearing heavy footsteps outside his barricaded office at night. It wasn't long before he too fled, and Portlock was left completely deserted. Even after the town was abandoned, the legend didn't die. In the 70s, a group of hunters seeking shelter from a storm stumbled upon the empty village. That night, they experienced something that still gives people chills. They reported hearing growls and strange noises as if something large and two-legged was circling their camp. Needless to say, they didn't stick around for long. There was also a creepy tale from 1990. A paramedic in Anchorage shared a story about an elder he encountered who had once lived in Portlock. The moment the paramedic mentioned the town, the elder grabbed his shirt and demanded to know if he'd seen it. The fear in the elder's eyes was enough to convince anyone that whatever happened in Portlock had left a lasting impact. Of course, skeptics have their own theories. Some say it was all just bears. Alaska is home to some massive grizzlies and black bears after all. But the thing is, bears don't usually rip apart sleds and scatter dogs like that. Others believe the fear and sickness reported by early settlers could be explained by something called infrasound, low-frequency vibrations that can mess with your mind and body, making you feel nauseous or terrified for no obvious reason. But again, that doesn't explain the violent attacks. And then there's the weird bit about the upside-down trees. Multiple witnesses over the years have claimed to see entire clusters of trees driven into the ground with their roots sticking up in the air. While some say it could be caused by natural disasters like hurricanes, others argue that the way these trees were arranged seemed too precise to be random. For believers, it's more proof of something strange lurking in the woods. As if all this wasn't enough, there's the ongoing debate between two Alutiiq elders, Sally Ash and Melania Kell. Sally downplays the whole Nantinak thing, saying the town was abandoned because better opportunities popped up elsewhere. But then there's Melania, who insists that the creature was very real and very dangerous. According to her, it terrorized the community to the point where they had no choice but to leave. Even Sally admits that while living in Portlock, they had strict rules about making noise and avoiding certain areas. Whatever the truth is, Portlock's legend has only grown over the years. From documentaries to online forums, people can't seem to get enough of this spooky tale. Cryptozoologists, those folks who study creatures like Bigfoot, see the Nantinak as one of the best cases out there. The consistent descriptions over the years make them wonder if there might actually be something to it. Even now, adventurers and researchers visit the area hoping to uncover clues about what really happened. Modern tools like drones and thermal cameras offer new ways to explore the dense forests, but so far, nothing definitive has been found. That hasn't stopped people from trying, though. The mystery of Portlock continues to fascinate and terrify, keeping its eerie legend alive for future generations to ponder. Portlock's tale doesn't just stop at those stories. There are even weirder details scattered throughout its history. Reports mention strange howling noises in the dead of night echoing through the dense forest surrounding the village. Hunters who ventured too deep came back shaken, speaking of heavy footsteps shadowing them or spotting massive shapes moving through the trees. These weren't isolated incidents either. Over the years, similar reports kept popping up. Some accounts describe finding enormous footprints near rivers and streams, footprints far too big to belong to any known animal in the region. Measuring over 18 inches long, these tracks became one of the central pieces of evidence for believers. Critics, of course, dismissed these as hoaxes or natural anomalies, but those who found them were convinced otherwise. Another bizarre feature tied to Portlock's story involves the water itself. Fishermen spoke of strange disturbances in the waters near the coast, with sudden large waves forming without any apparent cause. Some even claim to have seen large, dark shapes just beneath the surface, hinting at something lurking beneath the waves. Whether these were massive fish, whales, or something else entirely, nobody could say for sure. While much of the focus is on the Nantinak, there's a broader mystery surrounding Portlock's repeated abandonment. Environmental factors like harsh weather, isolation, and limited access to supplies played a role, no doubt. But those who lived there spoke of an oppressive atmosphere, as if something intangible hung over the place, making it impossible to feel truly at ease. Despite all the fear and strange happenings, Portlock remained a point of interest for explorers and settlers. Each new wave of inhabitants brought hope that maybe this time things would be different. Yet every time, something drove them away. Whether it was fear, unexplained events, or something lurking in the shadows, Portlock couldn't hold on to its people for long. Today, Portlock stands as a ghost town, a haunting reminder of its eerie past. The dense forests have reclaimed much of the area, with only remnants of buildings and pathways hinting at the lives once lived there. As things took a new turn, strange encounters emerged in unexpected places. Strange cases across the globe. In August of 2019, Hickory, North Carolina became the scene of what might just be one of the wildest Bigfoot encounters ever recorded. Local Bigfoot enthusiast Doug Teague, out for a routine walk with his dog Daisy, didn't expect anything beyond some peace and quiet in the woods. But things took a turn when he heard loud knocking sounds coming from deeper within the forest. Curious but cautious, Doug headed toward the noise, only to spot something unusual on a ridge. Grabbing his phone, he managed to film a large, unidentifiable creature moving through the trees. Doug followed its tracks, which led him to a set of enormous footprints. He even took casts of them, hoping they could offer solid proof. According to later analysis by an anthropologist, the prints suggested the creature was around 15 feet tall, an absolutely massive figure that's hard to ignore. Experts who reviewed the casts claimed they looked legitimate. Whether it was a true Bigfoot sighting or something else entirely remains a hot debate. Fast forward to 2020 in San Gabriel, California, where another strange encounter happened. A hiker exploring the San Gabriel wilderness stumbled upon something bizarre. While enjoying the scenic view and recording the landscape, he noticed a figure lurking among the trees below. Zooming in, he captured what appeared to be a tall creature, possibly 10 to 15 feet in height. What made this sighting even stranger was how still the figure remained, almost as if it was deliberately avoiding attention. Interestingly, the San Gabriel area isn't typically known for Bigfoot activity. Yet just 2 years earlier, in 2018, a woman reported seeing a similar creature in the nearby San Bernardino Mountains. Her account described an ape-like figure perched in a tree, observing her and her daughters from a distance. Could these sightings be related? While skeptics argue it might have been a trick of the light or a hoax, believers are convinced something unexplained is out there. Back in 2015, a mushroom hunter in northern Illinois had an experience he wouldn't soon forget. While foraging in a dense forest, he noticed several mushrooms that appeared to have been bitten or torn apart. Intrigued, he began filming his surroundings. Everything seemed normal until he heard an unsettling noise, something like a growl or grunt, coming from deeper in the woods. Clearly spooked, the hunter decided it was best to leave. Although he returned 6 years later to the same spot, he reported hearing nothing unusual. Despite the lack of follow-up evidence, the initial encounter gained attention and was even featured on the History Channel. Over in the United Kingdom, sightings of Bigfoot-like creatures aren't exactly common, but they do happen. In 2021, Lee Brickley, a self-proclaimed Bigfoot hunter, claimed to have discovered fresh tracks and claw marks in Cannock Chase, Staffordshire. This area, known for paranormal activity and supernatural legends dating back centuries, seemed like the perfect place for such a find. The tracks Lee found were enormous, 41 centimeters long and far too big to belong to any known animal in the region. About a month later, he found claw marks on a nearby tree and a mutilated deer with severe bite wounds. Whether or not a large creature is actually roaming Cannock Chase, these reports have stirred curiosity among enthusiasts and skeptics alike. In Pennsylvania, Bigfoot lore runs deep. One of the most compelling cases dates back to August of 1980 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Locals discovered a massive six-toed footprint in the mud, measuring over 17 inches in length. The distance between the left and right footprints suggested the creature had an enormous stride, with the next print found 8 feet away. Adding to the mystery, nearby residents reported a foul odor and strange noises in the area around the same time. Although no definitive explanation was ever found, the story made headlines and remains a topic of discussion. Another intriguing case took place in North Carolina in 2009 when Michael Green, a retired investigator, captured a 3-minute thermal video in Uwharrie National Forest. For over 20 years, Green had been searching for evidence of Bigfoot, and on this particular night he may have struck gold. He left out bait, bananas, apples, peanut butter, and even squeaky toys to lure the creature in. Late at night, he recorded footage of a large figure approaching the bait. According to Green, the creature was about 7.5 feet tall. The thermal imaging showed a consistent heat signature, meaning it wasn't someone in a costume. While some viewers remain skeptical, others view this as some of the best evidence ever captured. If that wasn't enough, more chilling stories awaited from distant lands. The Silent Watchers. Canada has its own chilling tale. Near Hudson Bay, a young explorer named Sincere Guam had a terrifying experience while camping alone. After finding an unusually large pile of excrement and a heavily urinated tree, he didn't think much of it and set up camp for the night. But as darkness fell, things took a frightening turn. He spotted a creature with human-like features, but clearly not human. Too scared to move, he built up his campfire, hoping it would keep whatever was out there at bay. Later, he heard blood-curdling screams echoing through the forest. Believing he was surrounded by multiple creatures, Sincere made a desperate run for it. In the chaos, he fell and injured himself, only to see large ape-like beings approaching. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, the creature suddenly retreated, and he managed to reach a nearby road. Sincere ended up in the hospital, where he spent weeks recovering from both physical injuries and the psychological trauma of the encounter. Despite his vivid claims, doctors determined he was mentally sound. His story only became public after his medical records were leaked, and to this day, his whereabouts remain unknown. In 2007, another strange incident occurred in Pennsylvania. Rick Jacobs, using a trail camera to monitor deer, unexpectedly captured 2 photographs of what some believe to be a juvenile Bigfoot. Initially, his camera recorded bear cubs sniffing around the bait he had set. But shortly after, an unknown creature walked past. The photos showed a small, ape-like figure that didn't match the appearance of any known animal in the area. While some skeptics suggested it could have been a bear with mange, others insisted it was a young Sasquatch. One final eerie case took place in southern Siberia in 2013, when 3 Russian schoolchildren claimed to have encountered a Yeti. They followed large footprints in the snow, eventually spotting a figure about 15 meters ahead. As they approached, the creature noticed them and quickly fled. The boys, understandably frightened, ran in the opposite direction. Experts who reviewed the blurry footage found it intriguing, but couldn't confirm if it was a genuine Yeti or something else entirely. Back in California in 2009, an experienced hiker named John had a harrowing encounter near Lake Shasta. While hiking alone, he began to feel uneasy, as if he were being watched. His fears were soon confirmed when he heard rocks being thrown and strange noises coming from behind him. Despite his growing anxiety, he pressed on, only to trip and injure his knee. As he lay on the ground, a large, hairy creature appeared. John managed to get up and limp away, relieved when the creature didn't follow. Though he never saw it again, the encounter left him convinced that something unusual is lurking in the wilderness. Whether all these stories are true or not, they certainly fuel the mystery and fascination surrounding Bigfoot sightings across the world. From North Carolina to Siberia, these chilling encounters remind us that some corners of the earth may still hold secrets waiting to be discovered. Continuing with more detailed stories, in the late 1960s, a series of bizarre encounters were reported in the Pacific Northwest. A logging crew working deep in the forests of Oregon reported hearing strange calls during the night. The sounds were described as high-pitched screams, unlike anything they had ever heard before. One night, the crew awoke to find large rocks scattered around their camp, as if something or someone had thrown them. Frightened, the crew decided to cut their trip short. Later that year, a local farmer claimed to have seen a large bipedal figure standing near the edge of his property. He described the creature as standing over 8 feet tall, covered in dark hair, and having glowing red eyes. Though many dismissed his story as a hoax, others believed it added credibility to the accounts of the logging crew. In 1978, a group of hikers exploring the Cascade Mountains in Washington state came across what they believed to be a nest. The structure was made of large branches and leaves, and it appeared to have been recently used. Near the nest, the hikers found several large footprints, each measuring over 18 inches in length. They took photographs and reported their findings to local authorities. Though an investigation was launched, no definitive evidence was found. Moving on to Alaska, the remote wilderness has long been associated with strange sightings and unexplained events. In 1993, a bush pilot flying over the Brooks Range reported seeing a large, hairy figure walking through an open clearing. The pilot estimated the figure to be over 9 feet tall. He circled the area several times, but by the time he landed his plane, the figure had vanished. Despite an extensive search, no trace of the creature was found. Another chilling account from Alaska comes from a fisherman who claimed to have been stalked by a large creature while camping near the Kenai River. According to his story, he noticed large footprints near his campsite early in the morning. As the day went on, he felt an eerie sense of being watched. That night, he awoke to the sound of heavy breathing outside his tent. Terrified, he grabbed his rifle and waited until dawn before packing up and leaving the area. In the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, tales of Bigfoot-like creatures known as orang pendek have been passed down for generations. In 2010, a team of researchers led an expedition into the jungles of Sumatra in search of the elusive creature. Over the course of several weeks, they collected numerous eyewitness accounts from locals who claimed to have seen the creature. The team also found large footprints and hair samples, which were later analyzed in a laboratory. While the results were inconclusive, they did not match any known species. In South America, the legend of the Mapinguari has intrigued explorers for decades. Described as a large, ape-like creature with a single eye and a mouth on its stomach, the Mapinguari is said to inhabit the rainforests of Brazil. In 2005, a team of biologists on a field study reported hearing strange vocalizations coming from deep within the forest. Though they never saw the creature, they found large footprints and claw marks on trees. Even in Australia, tales of a Bigfoot-like creature known as the Yowie have persisted for centuries. Aboriginal legends speak of a large, hairy being that roams the outback. In 2012, a group of campers near the Blue Mountains reported hearing loud screams and finding large humanoid footprints near their campsite. Despite an extensive search of the area, no further evidence was found. Before you leave, consider this. Are these sightings mere myth or evidence of undiscovered species? Comment your thoughts and subscribe for more thrilling explorations into the unknown.